Welcome to the Upside podcast, where we help you get unstuck in your life and your business by elevating your thinking and provoking meaningful change from the inside out. I'm your host, Theresa Flood, and this is my amazing rock star producer. In the house with me today, Rick Davis, Studio USA, the man behind all of the Upside.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me.
I know,
and so
this is
now,
gonna be so fun.
I'm having to get used to the other side of the upside, meaning like the other side of the camera.
The other side of the camera.
Yes.
Yes,
So
that's
here we
the
are.
other side.
Yes. Yeah. This is the upside, but I'm currently on the other side of the upside.
The other side of the Upside,
as
yes.
I would normally be used to.
And last episode, I was filming with my cards upside down, and so Skylar told me we were now on the downside. So we've been on all the sides
Yes.
at the
We've
upside.
gone all the way around the barn.
Okay, so I wanted today for this episode to talk about what I've learned so far starting a podcast, which we launched our first episode. I should have looked up the exact date, but I think it was the third week in January.
Yeah, you're about
It was a
20.
Tuesday.
This will be about 20 episodes in.
20 episodes in.
And there's still more, on deck. So yeah.
There's more on deck,
Yeah.
100%. So really, though, at the very beginning stages of this, but I thought this would be fun just to reflect kind of in the first 6 months, 4 to 6 months of learning kind of what lessons have I learned, and then how great will it be to look back in 2 years and say, okay, what did I learn now 2 years later?
Amen.
Coming through it. So I've got 6 lessons. I thought about doing 7 because it's a better number, but one of the lessons I've learned is less words is better. So I kept it to 6.
So technically that's the 7th lesson.
It's
The
the
7th
seventh
lesson is
lesson.
there is no 7th lesson.
That's correct.
Yes.
But we did the seventh lesson first.
Yeah. Look at that.
Okay.
We call this riffing. We're improvising.
Riffing.
Yes.
We're improvising. Yes. We're not reading off cue cards.
No, we are not.
Okay. So first lesson I learned, though, is that action brings clarity. You just have to start.
Agreed.
And it's funny because we had it scheduled, actually, I think, to launch the second week in January. We ended up moving it back because I had a launch event for our Go network, and we got iced out, and that moved that event. And so we moved it back a week. And I remember feeling like this relief, kind of like, oh my goodness, I don't have to start yet. Now, I had already been recording, though,
Snow
right?
day. Yes.
Because we had started recording, I think, the first ones in November. So we had, I think, probably 8 episodes recorded before we ever launched the first one. So there was like a lot of anticipation, and I felt, it's like, okay, you've got it in there. I didn't go back and watch them. And
that surprised me, actually.
yeah, no, because I didn't want to call you and say, no, let's redo them.
Or like, I quit. We're not doing it.
Yeah, exactly. I never watched them until, and I still don't watch them actually until the morning that they air. I listened to them with everybody else, and I actually listened to one this week, and I was like, that was pretty good.
What's funny is, okay, so for me, in regards to the upside, that waiting, all the runway that we had, and then the snow day, the delay, it was killing me because I knew within the first 90 seconds that it was money. And I was just like, dang, okay, this is really good. And every so often, okay, so to pull the curtain back, I have done literally hundreds upon hundreds of hours and location shoots and people on camera. And it is always a crapshoot. You never know how good somebody's going to be. And so you kind of have to plan for that.
Sure.
And it's like, okay, maybe it'll take 3 takes. Maybe it'll take 5. Maybe it'll be like this chop suey that we're going to cut up and it's a jigsaw puzzle and we're going to piece it back together afterwards, which happens often, but it's still doable.
Sure.
But I think because I want to say right out of the gate, you probably did 3 or 4 that first day. First off, you came in with the logo cards. Mad impressive because.
So if you behind the scenes, these are my like bullet point notes. So I take a piece of paper, I slice them up, I tape them on here. Somebody asked me, what do you have on those cards? Like, it's not word for word. It's just kind of the bullet points so I can stay on track.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Just bullets.
Branded.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
well, and that, hey, one of the first things in this world is you're not legit until you have a logo, and then you haven't leveled up and you have swag.
And I do have hats.
You have hats?
But Tommy told me the ones that I got for men are too girly, so I'm redoing them currently. So stay tuned.
Well, that's fine.
I'll get you one when I have manly hats.
There you go. Well, and then that'll make the OG boys hats like a collector's item.
There you go. Yes.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah. Well, and even like the day that when so shout out to Andrea Miller for actually introducing us.
He did.
And it was so funny because it was a recurring theme for years and years. And then I'd had this location for probably a year. And you and I both know she works herself to death. And it probably took me 6 months to get her in here to actually just pop by and say, just check it out. She came in, and I kid you not, within 45 seconds, she's like, "Oh my God, Theresa needs to see this." And I was like, "Okay, all right, well, and then everything happened so fast. And the next thing I know, we're at your office, and it was us walking in, and then you were literally turning the monitor around and going like, "Oh, wow, here's the logo that I was working on my podcast."
Yep. I had decided 2 days before that I was going to pull the trigger and do a podcast.
Which
2 days before we
blows
met.
my mind.
Yeah,
and then
it was
you
a
came,
God thing.
And then you came in. Yes, absolutely. And then you came in with your leadership team, and I was like, "Oh, everybody's good."
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
I have the best people.
I was like, kudos to that. So like,
Yeah.
you could also have a job here as talent scout if you wanted. Because again, going back to even whenever you first came in that first time, it was like, first off, the logo cards. It's like, branding. Yeah. Okay. And then I want to say the first one, you might have just like, okay, how did that, like you might have started and then stopped, but not because you messed anything up. It was literally, you were just like, okay, how does that look? Or, whatever. And I was like, dude. And then you blew through like 3 without stopping. And you also had that. One of the things is a lot of the folks I work with need an editor. It's like, they're fabulous. However, they're too much fabulous. And it's like, like what you said earlier, like less words. And you automatically had the sweet spot.
Okay. So that is point number 2 though.
Oh, did I get ahead of the score sheet?
No, this is perfect because the second thing I've learned, and this is something that I have been learning for a while, but I've seen it so play out in this, is that perfection doesn't exist without the reps. And, from first podcast, I feel like it already looks better, sounds better, just 15 episodes in, right? We've already honed it. It's already gotten better. But the reason I was able to walk in and basically do them in one take is because I've been speaking on our morning huddle, doing this exact thing on a Zoom call for 75 agents every single morning. So it was 5 years of reps.
Yeah.
Right. To be able to do that. And so I didn't just wake up one day and be able to do that. And like, you just realize everything you do is preparation for your next.
Skill stacking.
It's skill stacking. Yes.
And you came in and you killed it. And then to your second point, my motto with everybody in my crew is done supersedes perfect.
Yes.
And
we just got to go.
Yes.
Nobody has time for perfect.
Right. And so many people, it's usually fear and perfectionism is just like an anxiety disorder coming out sideways.
Yeah.
And one of the most freeing things is it's like this double-edged sword of you get to a level where, oh, wait a minute, nobody cares. Oh, wait, nobody cares. So it's like this, you vacillate back and forth between, oh, it's such a relief that nobody cares. Oh no, nobody cares.
Right. Yes.
But whenever, because every single, so me as like the wise old man, the wise old owl of the photography world with my guys, because they are all, and it's like you've met Cruz, and they're all, and now you met Austin, so they're all, at least chronologically, where they could be like my kids, And so one of the things is, and they all, being creatives or whatever, have that sensitivity attached to the thing, like whatever the thing is that they're making.
Yeah.
There's an emotional attachment, or almost where they're living vicariously through the thing. And so like whatever you say about the thing is what you say about them.
Yeah.
And to get to a place where like, okay, you got to let that go.
Sure.
And you just got to get it done and get it out there. And then you learn over time. First off, the market will decide whether you're good or not. That's not your call.
Yeah.
And then after that, you kind of get a thicker skin. And then, okay, after you get beat up a couple times, or you get insulted, or you have your, your great work.
I had my first hater on YouTube, and I actually felt like I had arrived.
You did?
Yes, they were so mean. They just disagreed. It was kind of ridiculous. They were wrong, obviously.
Oh,
but I'm kidding.
Hey, it's a free country.
It was like, and it was not somebody I know, just some random person on YouTube. And I was like, somebody discovered me, watched it, and thought enough to actually make a comment.
To rip on you.
To rip on me. So I'm adding that to like the first.
That goes in the win. That goes in the win column. I'm sure lots of
haters that just haven't told me. So, by the way, if you're listening to this and you're a hater, I'm not asking you to reach out. So I'm not like keeping them in an arsenal.
And for me, like, hey, if you just need to let it out, just come at it. Because what's funny is, I have the assistants or whatever that put stuff out.
Yeah.
And one of the things I didn't pay attention to, or I had never looked at, was the YouTube shorts. And, so I have it sort of on a lather, rinse, repeat or whatever.
It performs so much better than the long form.
Oh,
it's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
Yes.
And like likes and comments and there was something about like me being old or whatever, like gray hair, like I was just like, wow, okay. And then I think I replied back. I said like, Father Time is undefeated.
Yeah.
Is what I said, you know. But there is the thing, like every time I see myself, and that's another thing where it's like you see yourself and you're like, oh my God. And like now I'm like, oh, I get these done.
Yes.
I get some stem cells in my head. You know, whatever.
I've had to figure out how to do my makeup for the different lightings. We've had some misses. I'm not going to lie. There was a couple episodes I was like, not even close to enough blush. And then I went a little overkill, I think the next week to compensate. And I was like, not a great look, but we're getting it. And you know what? Does anybody care? I'm not doing this. So I get comments that I'm pretty. I'm not trying to be a makeup artist. I'm not doing a makeup tutorial. So I think everyone has gotten maybe a little better.
Yes. Well, we're all getting better.
See. I don't know, but it's in the reps, right?
What surprised me was, okay, so like, at the beginning, you know, we did the set deck, you know, and all that for you. Yeah. Because it was like,
I know, because that's what I wanted.
Yeah, the softer thing and everything. And then you did the first interview over here, and I showed you that, and you're like, oh, I like that better.
Yeah.
You know, because like this is kind of the Death Star. This is like my happy accident of the Wayfair stick lights and the other stuff.
Yeah.
And then to be able to have the gimmicks, that was a happy accident, but it was like what 15-year-old me would think was cool.
Yeah.
And because he's still alive in there, and he comes out probably a few times a week. Where I'm just, because like sometimes I'll come in here and I'm just by myself and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I just get to come in here and like play with all the gimmicks. But I love the fact that you're like, oh, I kind of like the lighting and the setup better. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And
but here's the key. We don't go redo episodes. We just going forward because we don't have time. Right. And so I think it's like action brings clarity. You just have to. So I had this thought. What is the biggest difference between me and anybody who doesn't have a podcast? The biggest difference is just that I started. I'm not necessarily better, not necessarily more talented, probably not more talented. The biggest difference is that I've started. And then what's the biggest difference between me and the top rated podcasts in the world? I'm sure there are plenty of differences, but the number one difference is the amount of time we've been doing it.
Yeah, reps.
It's reps.
It's exactly
right.
What
Like that's the number one difference. Now, again, but the talent, the exposure, the influence, all of that comes in the reps.
Yes. And you get a larger sense of ease and comfort the more that you do it. And it's the same whenever, like, you know, so for example, like Andrea, whenever we first started doing on location during COVID, it was just like a total freak out because it's, okay, we're totally off the map. We are in uncharted territory, which way is up, whatever. But then 100+ listings later, it's like falling off a log.
Yeah.
And it's like,
you get the muscle memory.
Yes.
So, you know, I think that I don't love the phrase imposter syndrome. I think we use that for a lot of things. And I think a lot of times we're just new.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with being new.
It's a verbal shorthand for never having done it before.
Yeah.
And then we have that weird inner monologue most of the time where it's like, I should be better than I am. But then intellectually, if you like charted that out and diagrammed that sense, okay, why?
Right.
What in your backstory and in your background makes you think that you should be better at fill in the blank than you actually are?
Yeah.
When you have done it 0 times.
Which, if we're being honest, is kind of an entitlement mentality that we could show up on day one and be the best in the world, or even the best in our category or the best in our group on a day one. You know, life just doesn't work that way.
And in this particular universe, or this little corner of the universe, because the vast majority of what people see is the finished product.
Yeah.
You know, so if they're watching this and they're seeing the 3-camera shoot edited, and it's jumping back and forth from the two of us. Oh, and now he's looking at the camera. Now he's looking at that camera. Now he's looking at that camera. Yes, exactly. And so all of that makes it look like the sausage just fully formed and it was breakfast.
Right.
And it's like, nope, the sausage requires making.
It does.
And a lot of folks, so it's crazy because you came in with a fully formed idea, and like you said, countless reps of Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Which I couldn't even begin to place a value on that and how much that, but there again, it's like circumstance and the situation that put you there gave you this springboard to come in and be awesome right out of the gate. But most of my time is talking people out of doing it because, as you know, because you will, and again, kudos to you for coming in like you had 4 ready to go the first day. I'm like, oh my God, I love this. Because the vast majority of my time when I'm talking people out of it, it's like, I want to do a podcast. Okay, what's it about? It could be about anything. Well, if it's about anything, it's about nothing.
Yeah.
Who's your audience? Oh, it could be anybody. The earth. Okay, great. And so a lot of people think that they should, or ought to or need to have a podcast, but what they really want is what they think it's going to feel like when they tell somebody they have a podcast.
Yeah, it's not that great.
Right?
It's really not that great.
And you either need to want to do it just because, one, you might want to see if you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, like where you have stylistically and through the reps, you've honed it into the voice where you're not coming in here trying to be something that you're not.
Yeah.
And you do this already. So it literally is just an extension of what you've already been doing, which I'm sure you would agree makes it a lot easier to keep doing.
So, and one of my things, so I was actually chatting with a coworker yesterday, another leader in our organization, and she's going on a personal branding journey as well and kind of looking for how she wants to develop her voice. And she's a powerful leader. She's just dynamic. I mean, she could go do anything, speak, teach, write books. She's amazing. And she said to me, we got done, I said, well, let's continue this conversation because I think we can really help each other grow and hold each other accountable on our journeys. And she says, okay, great. Well, what do you want help being held accountable to? And I was like, well, honestly, I'm going to show up. Like if I say I'm going to do something, I put it on the calendar, I'm going to show up. Like there's not going to be a week that we don't have an episode. Like if I say I'm going to do it, it'll be, if we take a seasonal break, it'll be pre-planned on purpose. So if I commit to something, I'm going to do it. And I think that's key. But then also I told her, I said, I just need to keep thinking bigger, right? I need to be stretched to think bigger and to think more impact and not to get complacent in just the consistency of what I'm doing, but to continue to push myself and grow.
Yeah, ratchet it up.
To ratchet it up. Yeah. Because now, after a while, this is going to become old hat. And so it's going to be, how do I push myself to take things right to the next level? And that's how you don't get bored.
Next will be you go live. You go live out to the universe.
Yeah, live to the universe.
And so one of the things, just speaking for myself and doing, so I started, I want to say this will be 71 weeks in a row that I've done this. And one of the things I started out was, it was just so Cruz and the other guys, I could teach them how to use the equipment.
Okay.
So when somebody came in that was a legitimate, client and a customer, that it wasn't like a clown car crashing into the wall over there, like all the clowns spill out, nothing works. But the first time we went live and there was no sound, but because I'm the crash test dummy.
That worked great for everybody who was watching that were lip readers.
Yes, that's true.
So it was perfect audience.
So
you had your avatar really honed in.
They had no idea. All the lip readers out there were like, that was great. Man, those guys were fantastic.
Yes, so good.
Yeah.
So good.
But like and I learned where reps. So I started actually the funny, so this is how your mindset can be. So my phone's blowing up, but I have it upside down.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we're done, I flip it over and my phone's blowing up. Everybody's saying, there's no sound, there's no sound. And my first takeaway was, people were watching. I was like, what? For real? And so then everybody was here. I said, okay, re-rack, go to the restroom, come back. We're going to do it again and pretend that everything I said you've never heard before.
Right.
And it was literally, okay, that's just it. That's what happened. And so after doing that, we kind of got in the groove of, okay, every Friday we're doing something. And then I added the women's show. Mm-hmm. And then for probably 4 or 5 months, I just played the dumbass guy that was on with the women. And then I got a couple of serious topics. I'm like, ooh, you don't need me in here. But the thing was, what kept it interesting for me, and this might be for you, is later. So we went live. And so Wayne and I would go live and we would pick the topic off of ChatGPT. So we didn't even know what we were going to talk about until we were live.
Okay.
And now it was still in the framework.
Hopefully it wasn't like molecular biology.
No.
Or the maths.
No, there was no maths. No. We kept it in the framework of entrepreneurial, mindset and motivation. But we tried to keep it current events. And there was a lot of stuff where I pulled the curtain back on just essentially driving with no map and no directions, but yet still ending up here. And of course, Daniel. And so I would get into a bunch of the backstory there. But the thing was, in order to keep it interesting and to keep me showing up every Friday, there was that unknown of kind of going out on the high wire. And then it got up to where we might have 125 people watching live. And then my next thing was like, what for? Like, why? But it's just knowing that that's a thing.
Yeah.
And that it's possible.
Okay. So one of the lessons that I learned was that your fans will surprise you, meaning I have been so surprised about the people that tune in So I have a friend who, she's a realtor at another company. We've been friends for a long time, and her son listen every week on the way to school. And her son subscribes to my YouTube channel. I am like, he is like, besides my girls, my number one middle school fan. And I'm so honored by that. That was like,
How awesome is that,
it's
though?
the greatest thing, right? Never in a million years would I've thought that they would be somebody. And I know this because she reached out and told me. And I'm so grateful to everybody who has shot me a text and said, hey, I listened to this episode, or hey, you've really been challenging me in this. That has so kept me going. But I've been surprised sometimes about the people that have really connected and latched on. And then the people who maybe haven't, and that's okay. There's no judgment. There's people that hear enough of me. They're probably like, I do not need to hear any more Theresa Flood. I have my fill. I am good to go.
I've been flooded. I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no hard feelings in that. But it's really been interesting. You know, I have a girl that I haven't talked to, face to face in years, going through chemo, reached out to me, listens to the podcast.
Wow.
And I'm just blown away that she is encouraging me from the chemo chair to keep going.
Oh.
Right. I'm so humbled by that.
Yes.
And that is, there was one time, I don't remember what episode it was, but it didn't feel like it was performing very well. Like it just felt like the likes were and I didn't really think it was like one of the best ones. And I felt a little discouraged that week. And I got a couple texts of people that just reached out and encouraged me. But what I'm learning in all of that is how important it is to encourage other people on their journey. And you think probably, oh, somebody's already getting a ton of encouragement, I don't need to do it. Or, every like on a Instagram post, or subscribe on a YouTube page, or comment that you make publicly, or private text, it is so valuable. And so I am purposely working to be better myself and looking at people and going, I want to encourage people in that journey.
And now I'm over here going like, oh, I so totally need to do that. Because the truth is,
you don't really, I think when you're receiving it and you realize how impactful it is, you go, oh yes, I need to be giving more of this out.
Well, and I joke again, often with my team or any of the agents or whatever. They're like, did you see how many likes, how many views? I'm like, oh, awesome. And I said, external validation never goes out of style.
Yeah.
I don't give a hoot what your inner light looks like or whatever. Yeah. External validation never goes out of style.
Yeah.
And like what you said, where somebody comes out of left field that you haven't even talked to or thought about or whatever, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I saw your thing on the thing and it was amazing.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, okay. Yeah. And that's the beauty of,
and that's so much more powerful though than a like or X number of it's when it's personal and you go, oh wow, this has actually made a difference in somebody's life.
Yes.
Right.
And the beauty of, or again, the double-edged sword of the world that we're in today is everything that you've done so far is permanently there. So I was actually trying to accentuate the upside of that.
I do see what you did there.
Yes.
Very good. Yes.
Where people will continue to discover what you did 10 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Ad infinitum.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty.
I'm so excited. Like 3 years from now, people go, oh my gosh, I saw your first episode. Look how far you've come. Like that will be really fun and exciting.
And again, like I said, this is like 71 weeks in a row that I've done this. And part of it is exactly what you said. I said I would do it.
Yep.
And
gonna do it.
And full stop, Yep. And then anything that comes after that is gravy, because there's something about the doing. It's exactly what you said. It's like the showing up. First off, it's the starting. And then you realize like, oh, wow, it might suck or it might be less than I would prefer it to be. However, I'm doing it. And name one, I can't think of anything that I ever started, stuck with, and got worse.
Right.
It's
a good point.
Yeah. It's like the world really doesn't work that way.
Longer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I practiced more and I got worse.
Interesting.
Yeah. The universe doesn't work that way.
Well, it's interesting too, because I think some of what is most inspiring to people is that they're inspired to see people get out of their comfort zone.
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's some of the feedback I've gotten is not even so much this one-liner you said was so amazingly impactful to me. It was, wow, you're like stepping out and doing something different. Tell me about that. because they're looking for the courage to start
Yep.
their next thing.
They want permission.
They want permission,
a lot
right?
of folks.
And if I can do it, by golly, anybody can do
Right.
it.
And now I'm curious, have you had anybody that was, so this would go by, I don't have any specific recollections of who, but I remember as a mortgage guy in a previous life, and I morphed into, I went to the Art Institute of Dallas 35 years ago. Yeah. So technically, the schooling was in the back pocket the whole time.
Sure.
But when I morphed out of mortgage, and it was purely organic, it wasn't like I woke up one day and that was my quest or whatever, but I got a lot of implied, well, you shouldn't, why are you doing that?
Why are you doing that?
You're coloring, oh, wait, no, you should fit in this box.
Yeah.
So have you gotten any of that?
A little bit. I wouldn't say real overtly.
Okay, yeah.
Or,
it's like, oh, what are you doing that for?
And I think people have wondered that, right?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
Right.
And a lot of people have just asked, like, so what's your end, what are you trying to accomplish in this? What's your end game? Like, what are you looking to do in this? And it's multifaceted.
Yeah.
Right. It's beneficial for my role as a leader at Keller Williams Go, Dallas Preston Road. It's beneficial for me in my own personal growth. It's part of just what I believe my purpose is and my mission, that I want to wake up every single day, regardless of what quote job I have or what I do, and help people discover who they are and live their potential, right? So there's so many things, it's kind of like, I don't know where this goes.
Right. And now me being the workaholic bachelor with no kids, it's like I have no life to speak of or whatever. But for the ones that do have a family and are very family oriented and all of that, I would say you are making an archive for your grandchildren and your grandchildren's grandchildren
For
that you couldn't do it if you try. If you plan to do it, the backlog of content, topics, and
that makes me want to cry. I've never thought about that before.
Oh, well then don't do that, because then I might get squishy, and that's
we don't want to get too squishy.
Yeah,
that's a very serious podcast, not a crying podcast.
Yes,
Like a laugh.
exactly. We're not getting emo in here.
But that is true, and that's really cool. I mean, and I feel like even just I've always wanted to model to my girls that they can do anything they set their mind to, but that it's going to take hard work.
Yes.
That they're going to have to show up when it's hard. That there's no easy road. That it's going to take consistency.
All of the things you've touched on so far.
All of the things, right? And I think they're getting to see this modeled out for them.
Yes,
of course,
absolutely.
They're 13. They're not allowed to have social media. They can go onto YouTube. They can watch my podcast, of course. That is approved programming.
We let that one through the
One day I'm going to bring them on, and we're going to do an episode with Jillian and Jet.
I would love to hear them just...
We got to figure that out, what that needs to look like.
Yeah.
I will take audience requests. How should I interview them? Should they interview me?
I would do both.
Where fun with this.
Yeah, I would say you could even just do like where it's like one or two questions from either side. But I would be curious, like, again, I was just put on my, well, if I had kids, what would I be curious about? It would be, what do they think of mom and what mom does?
Yeah.
Or like, tell us about your mom. Like, what does your mom do? You know?
That could be scary. We're not going to go live on this one. This might be the one episode that we edit.
This will be so finely edited.
Yes,
it'll be just razor thin cuts.
Together.
Yes, razor thin cuts. Or it'll be like Manchurian Candidate. My mother is amazing. Yeah.
She is perfect.
Yeah, it'll be like AI where
she lives every word of this to a T. Yeah, no, we'll have some fun with that one.
There you go.
The next thing I learned.
Yes.
It's a lot. So somebody asked me the other day, they go, is it time consuming? I'm like, yeah, actually it is. And it is energizing to me.
Yes.
Because it is the right next step for my business and for my growth. So, and working with somebody like you has made it much less time consuming, because you've been amazing and you deal like with Buzzsprout and our feeds. And then when Apple Podcasts, which by the way, always has a problem, and
can confirm,
like all of those kinds of things, you have leveraged that for me tremendously.
Thank you.
But there's no muscle memory yet, right?
Right.
So it's like I'm still having to kind of get in the groove and the gauge of it.
Yes.
And so over time, it's already easier than it was a couple months ago.
You're shoehorning it into a rather, just from the bleachers, a rather full life from what I could see. So the idea that you would even just have the consistency to be able to do even if there was just enough to get one out per week, just barely but like by the razor's edge. But that's not the case.
Yeah.
So kudos for that.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's a lot and that's the thing, going back to what I said, where I often am talking people out of doing it, because unless you're doing it because you want to see if you can and what it looks like after you've done it for a while, you will lose interest.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it for the likes, or if you're doing it specifically to garner external validation for yourself, you will be disappointed.
100%. Like, because it's never going to be fast enough, explosive enough.
Right.
And that was actually my number 6.
Oh,
lesson
okay.
I learned
Yes.
was you have to be really clear on your why. Because if you don't know why you're doing it, and that's the case with anything new you're starting, that's going to require a long road ahead, and consistent. You just need to
open-ended.
That's open-ended. You need to really understand why you're doing what you're doing. And you have to be committed to the process, not committed to the outcome.
Yes.
Or you're committed to the outcome by way of the fact that you're committed to continuing in the process.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would say the outcome being just a show.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, okay, I have a show. Okay. So that outcome has been achieved. Now the process of having a show is underway. And then if you can get in tune and in love with that part of it, because, and like I said, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And for you to stack them, which is the right way to do it.
Yes.
By the way.
Yes.
Unless you're going live. Live, so Daniel Ang, shout out to our mutual friend, Daniel Ang, and my landlord. He got me into going live. So I will freely admit that going back to the imposter syndrome, whenever I was very first starting, I didn't want to be in front of the camera because I am absolutely aware and will freely admit that I love the sound of my own voice. So I have no problem in just being, hey, look at me, and all of that. So I didn't want to do that, because then all of a sudden that's what it's about, and you have imposter syndrome at the beginning because odds are you probably are terrible at whatever it is that you're trying. And so you feel like a fake only because you can't do it.
Sure.
And you can't do it because you haven't done it enough.
Right.
But then as everything progresses, everything gets easier, and the hard thing gets easier, and you get better. And like those two things kind of intersect.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the line, you're like, oh, I can kind of do this, and then doing the live thing and doing it where like, oh, this is fun, just because I was doing it, one, to teach the guys how to use the gear. But the other thing was like, and I would purposely bring on my friends that are coaches because I would want to throw them a curveball. Yeah. Not because partly because I wanted to see like, okay, what does this look like if we're like live in the moment doing this?
Yeah.
And you don't know, and you don't have a canned answer or anything like that. And we're not talking in catchphrases or whatever. And it turns out that like Wayne and I have a blast, and we just go everywhere. And I've said some things about, stuff in business I'd probably people rather not know, or I'd rather they not know. And I come away from the going, oh, wow, that was rather cathartic, and fair enough. Yeah. And then we just do it again. And then now with the advent of the clips and the reels and the stories, it's a machine.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty is you spend an hour creating this content, and then you get to slice it, dice it, use it 100 different ways.
Yes.
Forever, right? Okay, so the last lesson, which was number 5, we kind of did number 6 first. It's maths.
Yeah, exactly. I told you.
And really that is to be ahead of the game, right? Which is kind of the idea of batching our content and being ahead. So Easter was this Sunday, and I came home from church. We did lunch at my mom's, and of course, it's like every Tuesday we drop these episodes every Tuesday, and it comes fast. Like feel like I'm still doing reels from the previous episode, and it's already time for the new episode. And I thought, oh man, I need to go get it. Skylar Williamson was the upcoming episode. I was like, I need to go grab his bio. I need to go write the podcast description and write all of this up. And I went into my little contact calendar, and I was like, well, doggone it, Theresa, you already did it. And I actually had forgotten, because 3 weeks ago, every episode that we had already filmed, I went and did all of the writing essentially for it. And I forgot that I had done it. And I just had this wave of relief. And not that it would have even taken that long. Right. But in that moment, I honestly didn't feel like doing it. And so I was
keep
like,
it real.
This is so great.
Yes.
Like, it's already done. And so I'm learning not just to have the episodes filmed ahead of time, but to do as much ahead as possible because you're planning to fail. Meaning you might get sick, you might get super busy, you may just not feel like doing it, but the commitment is there. We're going to do it whether we feel like it or not,
Right.
whether we're sick, like it's going to happen. And so if you can get ahead of it, and even scheduling. So, I schedule with you. Well, this time I didn't schedule with you. I just put it on my own calendar and didn't actually put it on yours, but it still counts. It was in my well-intentioned.
Yes.
But I do that to hold myself accountable to making sure that I've written the episodes, that I've honed them out, and then I'm going to show up and record because by golly, I'm not going to cancel on you. Your time is precious, and I'm not going to cancel on you, so I better be ready.
And I can neither confirm nor deny that there may or may not have been a Sunday or Monday night where I was up late going like, I forgot to pull the audio. You know? But you've seen how everything is organized. And so like when Colette first saw the Dropbox and the way I just, she goes, you're a marketer's dream. And I'm like, that is from years of not doing it that way, which ties into exactly what you said.
All a system.
Yes, it's all a system. Everything goes, audio only goes in here. Finished episode goes in here. Reels and stories go in here. And it's all named. The nomenclature and everything is the same for everything. So that way it all follows the same line. And like you said, I love when everything's already done and all I got to do is like upload, schedule, schedule.
Awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. I think that is such a key because life is going to happen. And if you're committed to it, you have to figure out how to allow yourself some failure, if you will, or to get behind, right? And you do that by just batching it ahead. You know?
Give yourself a little bit of breathing room.
Absolutely. Otherwise, you'll just be constant. And that's what creates the anxiety and the stress. And then it starts to feel overwhelming, like,
Yep. And then any kind of joy you might have had is just sucked right out of it. And then you, all of a sudden you're being critical of yourself for, well, it's like, well, did you think like there wasn't going to be some rando life thing happen at some point in your life? It's like,
it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Just going to happen.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, somebody said, are you going to run out of things to talk about? And, I thought that's like actually a great question because if you think, okay, I'm planning to continue doing this until it's time for the next season or what have you. And you think, okay, am I going to run out of things to talk about? But the truth and the reality is if I quit learning, yes. If I continue to learn and grow and invest in myself, then I'll always have something new to share.
Absolutely.
I'll always have something new to talk about. So the accountability, not just of filming an episode to get it done, but also of saying, I better learn and grow and be investing in myself. I do it every morning. I'm reading, right? I'm doing all of those things, listening to other podcasts, filling my mind with content. Because if I don't do that, I'm not going to have anything to share.
And that also, there's that double-edged sword there where like, so my overarching philosophy in that world is there are going to be times where you're going to mail it in or you're going to be as close to mailing it in as humanly possible.
Yep.
But you can suck, but you can't quit.
Yeah.
And I even do that like on my elliptical. I have to do 15 minutes every day.
Yeah.
Bare minimum. And there are times where it's 12 minutes. I'm like, oh, be over. Because I do it with a weighted vest, just a bunch of other ridiculous stuff.
Yep.
But like there, it's like, you have to do it. If you say you're going to do it, you have to do it. And sometimes it might be crappy.
Yep.
But
what builds confidence, and I believe this just so fundamentally, is when we keep the promises we make to ourselves.
Absolutely.
That's what creates the confidence. The confidence really doesn't come because of the likes or the subscribes or the accolades. The confidence comes because I said I was going to do it, and it was hard, and I still did it. I said I was going to do it, and I didn't want to do it, and I still did it.
Yes.
That is what creates confidence for somebody.
Absolutely. And that's where your self-esteem comes from too, in large part, because now you are somebody that you can trust.
Yes.
Because you did what you said you were going to do.
Yes.
And
that's so key.
That is a huge part of the whole thing. And then, well, if I do what I say I'm going to do, that's very easily transferred out into the world.
Right.
But, if you know yourself, though, I never do what I say, like if you have that inner monologue or whatever, well, that's a hard thing to navigate with everybody else.
And you just got to start somewhere. So, if somebody's listening to this struggling, pick something that you can go commit to doing. Doesn't have to be everything. Don't go try to win everything at once. Excuse me.
Croy.
Moment, please. I was about to go on a powerful monologue.
I was feeling it too.
I know. Okay. Anyways, but pick one thing.
Yes.
That you can commit to doing and start small. It doesn't have to be massive. You know, if it's just start with one video,
Mm-hmm.
start with one video a week, start with teaching a class, start with just doing something that's going to push you out of your comfort zone, and then start adding the consistency to it, whether you feel like it or not. Start messy.
Yes.
Start messy. It's going to be messy. Just start messy. Embrace messy. It really is okay.
Ugly's all right.
Nobody else cares. Nobody else is paying as much attention as we think. Start messy. Stay consistent. And do it for the impact. Because if you do it to be of service of others, whatever it is that you're starting, whether it's a podcast or just launching a business or something new in your business, if you do it for other people, you just won't be disappointed.
Amen. And if you do it to get out of your own comfort zone, that is then a teachable thing that you can have you can help other people with.
Yes.
Because like we said earlier, we touched on it. A lot of people just want permission to do something that they're afraid to do.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do that. I'm a fill in the blank.
Right.
And it's like, no, you can do that. You can be both.
Yes.
You know, because like if you just said like, oh no, I'm a sales leader, whatever, I can't do a podcast.
Right.
You know, it'd be very easily, you know.
Which I thought that at first, to be clear. I mean,
nature.
So when I was working with Colette, who's our director of Go Marketing, and she suggested a podcast, I was like, I don't want to do a podcast. It felt like so cliche to me. I was like, I'm not going to do a podcast. I was like, I don't want to do a podcast. And yet, as I really looked at it, it was the next natural step of what I had been doing in these morning huddles. And it sounds so hokey in a way, because I talk about these morning huddles all the time. But when I tell you that the reps and the consistency have been life-changing, and it didn't happen after a month, even a year. It was time on task over time.
Yes.
And so now, I think, oh, this is exciting because this is just like year one. Let's see what happens in 5 years.
And I'm
in it for the long haul.
Yes,
right?
that right there. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
That is, if everybody could have that attitude, even just for a minute on trying to get out of their comfort zone, let's see what happens versus, oh, I'm going to be judged on this thing, probably harshly, because nobody ever skews to the everybody skews to the negative.
Yeah.
And nobody skews to like the super optimistic outlook.
Yeah.
And there again, that's just human nature.
Do you know who's not judging?
Who?
Is the people who have been down that road before.
Yes.
It's the people that judge and are harsh and critical are the ones who are afraid to step out and do it. The people that have started on day one, they remember their day one, they remember they were nervous, they remembered how messy it was, how imperfect it was. Those are not the people you get judged from.
No.
It's the people who resent you for doing the things that they're too afraid to do, right?
And
so
that is human nature 101. It is. So I've heard, like one of the things I will teach my guys, because it's like, oh, they said this on Facebook, or they're like ripping on my stuff or whatever. It's like, look, nobody that's doing better than you is going to criticize you.
Right.
And everybody else that is ripping on you is because you're doing something that they're afraid to do, and you remind them of that.
Yes. Yes.
And again, it's human nature, and I get it, but
I love it. Okay, so a year from now, same time, same place.
Yes.
And we'll say, what did we learn a year in?
We'll have at least 6 more things.
We'll have at least 6 more things.
Yes.
That'll be so fun.
I love it.
So thankful for you. Thank you for helping me in this
Likewise.
journey and being so fun to work with. Everybody should work with you on video, no doubt.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to yet another episode of the Upside podcast. And thank you. Please like, please subscribe, please share with a friend. And if you haven't gone to TheResaFlood.com, that's Theresa with an H, there's a flood.com. I know, isn't that clever? Yeah, it's There's a Flood. There's a flood.com. You can subscribe. And when you subscribe, I will add you to my weekly emails, but you also get a teaching guide for every episode that's not an interview. So we don't necessarily do one with an interview, but anything that is just me teaching, you get a teaching guide, which enables you to take that and turn around and teach it to teams that you lead, or that time where you get called on and need a little something and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to share. You just go to your Upside arsenal and you can pull from that content, make it yours, and hopefully that will empower you in your leadership growth. So thank you for tuning in.